So
Okay.
Kirtana, you're doing a workshop at the moment
Yeah.
with drama school students.
So what it is,
Wow.
Rustam, is that these drama school, the advanced course kids, they
Yeah.
haven't been able to do any embodied work because of the lockdowns,
Yeah.
right? So what we're doing is it's an experiment. So that's why there's so much work involved. We're setting up a COVID bubble here. So the
Okay.
faculty and students, everyone comes and everybody quarantines, and then we begin the
Oh,
course. So
wow.
it's a big chunk. It's 3 months of work.
Wow.
So you can,
That's a lot.
yeah, it's 3 months. It's a long because it's the entire advanced, embodied, all
Yeah.
the embodied work takes place
Wow.
here, you know. So
Mhm.
like body conditioning, voice, improv, devising, the whole everything.
Wow.
It's
How many
crazy. I've got like
students are there?
19 students and 4 faculty and a manager at all times.
Okay.
So
Wow.
even if faculty come and go, it will be with the quarantine in mind.
Wow.
You know, you have
Amazing.
to, it's such a huge thing we're doing. So I'm just trying to keep it on the DL. And if it
Yes.
happens well, and it's a good model for us.
Yes.
Prep. Because I really believe that when we live together and work together and cook together
Mm.
and eat together,
The dynamic is completely different.
then half an hour
Completely
complaining
different.
about
Yeah.
the traffic and the weather and then starting rehearsal, it's just so
Yeah.
silly.
Yes, it is. Are they living together in one space? Do you?
Yeah, we've got several cottages and now we've got dormitories and a
Wow.
common room and a dining pavilion.
Wow.
And it's wonderful. It's really, we're in the jungle.
Where exactly are you, Kirtana? Give me an idea of your location.
Okay. So when you head out of Bangalore, we're parallel to the Mysore road.
Okay.
So if you were heading towards Mysore, we would be
Yeah.
parallel to that. And it's about an
Wow.
hour and a half drive out of town.
Wow. Semi-rural or rural?
Very much rural.
Okay. Wow.
And we live here full time.
I think I'd like to bring the discussion back to space. I fully accept the potentiality of the digital space. It can, the sky's the limit, or the screen's the limit, let's say. I have no idea. Or technology can go a lot farther than it is at the moment. I want to think, I'm thinking very concretely now, one space that has really nurtured my imagination, and that is spaces in Chennai, Chandralekha space. And that's a very, very, it combines many things that we've been talking about. When you were talking about the courtyard, it's not exactly a courtyard, even though it's walled, a very small wall, but it's open to the sky. And I think that opening to the sky makes all the difference in performing in that space, but also being in that space. So I've spent many, many, many months watching a production called Prana. And today, when I think about it, that's such a beautiful irony because it's about breath, you know. And I think breath is what I'm coming back to over and over again. How do we learn to breathe again, you know? And how do we get buildings and spaces to breathe again? So, you know, I've watched many, many months of Prana in total side rehearsals and total silence, no music, just the breath, the undertone of breath of the performers. It was very beautiful. Now, why I think that space is something to consider very concretely, it's low cost, extremely low cost space. It's, as Chandra would put it very candidly, low maintenance, low maintenance. You know, we always have a problem in India with maintaining things. This space has a peculiar, I don't know how this happens with certain spaces. They take care of themselves. You know, it's a kind of self-nurturing kind of. So whether you go in after a squall or whether it's very hot, somehow the space is always changing and it's fresh. It's always fresh, you know. The other thing I noticed about it, it's elastic. You know, I don't know how else to put it, that whether you are the only person in that space, or maybe two other people in that space, or there are 150 people in that space, it can't accommodate 3,000. No, it's there is a limit for the audience, no question. But it's 150 people. It doesn't feel crowded. You get the same kind of dynamic. And I think this is where we get back to architectural principles of the mandala, So it's a very simple space, but there's a very specific measurement over here. And that measurement contributes to what Siddharth, you had talked about rightly, which is scale. You've got to get the scale correct, and if the scale is off, then nothing is going to work. I think Nikhil is well aware of this as a designer, and that how scale is, of course, scale has become much more complicated now with the digital world. We have many, many different scales. And finally, I would say, yes, you might say that space has a kind of minimal abstract quality to it. So it's right only for one kind of aesthetic. True, it does lend itself to one kind, but I've seen many different performances out there. Last year, in connection with my Mahabharat research, I saw a fairly realistic 15 character play of Kichakavadam. So there were about 15 or 20 people on that stage, fairly conventional staging. It was a tight squeeze, but it worked. There was an adjustment that took place in that space. So I think it's just one space. I'm not trying to say that it has to be replicated or anything like that, but some of the principles, I think, are really well worth studying, because it's been around for quite a long time. It's not difficult to maintain that space, but I think it's getting the proportions correct, just getting the right measurements correct and leaving it open to the sky. I think opening to the sky is, I think, crucial, for, just giving it air, giving it breath.
I just wanted to acknowledge and say that I was really moved, Kirtana, by you bringing the question down to the impulse of the artist. And I wanted to acknowledge and also agree with that the ideas of exploration, expression, and freeing yourself on spaces. There were just so many more spaces to do that. And I acknowledge that, and I really appreciated that. And I think her question of why do we make theater is also a pertinent question, especially when, and I'm talking very personally as someone who's lost a space right now because of COVID, that question becomes very potent. And perhaps because I'm so personally attached to the space, I've dreamt about it for a decade before I started working on it, and then spent 8 years working on it. I truly believe that that question is on my mind, and the answer to that question does lie in liveness and in presence and a communal presence, and that is something that part of me that I find so integral to. And I'm saying things that are really broad. Excuse me for that, but this is what I'm feeling right now. Is that reducing them onto Zoom has not been able to reach that kernel of why I do theater and why I want to continue doing it, and what I've spent so long building this space towards. So I admit it, it's a very personal reason why I have this aversion to performances on the online medium. I completely also accept that it's a medium that's transforming. It's still figuring itself out. It's still finding itself. But I don't know how it'll find that one thing that I actually go to the theater for, which is to be with other people and that communal effervescence that you feel. That's what I go for. And I haven't been able to find it online. And that's where I struggle, and that's where my frustrations come. But that's not to not acknowledge the thrill of what is happening online these days.
Right. Tell me, Nikhil, just being very practical, in order to hold on to this effervescence that you call this intimacy, this coming together or whatever, and yet in the pandemic, or it's with us, so we can't pretend it's not there. How many bodies can you see being accommodated in that space where you feel some minimal safety measures could be taken,
That's a great question, Rustam, because we haven't even been able to get to the point of doing that count, because we don't know how to let people in. Like in America, everyone says only people with vaccinations come in, but with our abysmal records of vaccination. And I also accept that India has to vaccinate a whole lot more people than America does.
Right.
But how do we even do that? Do we say only the privileged who have access to the vaccine can come see the shows? I don't know. I don't have answers to those questions. So I've just shut down a little bit because I don't know how to figure that out.
Right. Yeah, it's figuring out the protocols. The protocols are new things for us to consider. Dance clubs, they have all kinds of very onerous rights of entrance policies. You may be turned out by someone who's there and for no reason. They're not expected to give you a reason. They can just say, no, you're not welcome. Now, obviously, you can't work like that. That is not very hospitable. It's not very democratic. But on the other hand, there is a need for new protocols that at some level cannot be entirely self-regulated because they come with vaccinations. So Kirtana, what were the protocols that you and your team considered when you got this team of young theatre workers from Mumbai working? Were they all vaccinated?
There was a long list of protocols, Rustam. We went through a very, very long process. So we had somebody from Maharashtra state from the COVID war room, and we had such a lengthy discussion because DSM was concerned and we were very, very concerned because there's never been any COVID cases here. So right now what we have is that everyone has one vaccination. They come to Bangalore, they quarantine for a week in a hotel, for 5 days in a hotel altogether. So this is isolation quarantine. And then they come to Infinite Souls and they do 3 more days without interaction. And then we remain in a complete COVID bubble. So no entrances and exits. Even when new faculty come in, they quarantine and then join us. On campus, we have a quarantine cottage. So one cottage is only for, if somebody says I have a cold or something, they go off to that cottage. So, and then we have a second round of vaccinations that take place on campus here. So it's pretty intense. And before that, they've been given a whole list of protocols, so including vitamins and eating well and like all kinds of things, no contact. Now we just have to hope for the best. Having taken all these precautions, and also the idea was that we go forward confidently. We want to do great embodied work and not be.
Yes, these are the kinds of protocols that have to be negotiated on a site-to-site basis. What she is exploring in her area would be different from what you are exploring in Delhi. It would also depend on whether people can afford to quarantine for so long. There's money involved in that, and a risk involved in that. So there are many factors, I think, that we've never had to think about that we, I dare say, have to think about now if we wish to continue.
Now, what is also very encouraging over here is because, of course, the state is involved, but things were clear. There is clarity and everything has happened according to structure and according to protocol. Otherwise, that's what I am always afraid of, the ambiguity that comes in the moment state steps in. And I think Delhi, it's not going to be this easy at all, or any metropolitan for that reason.
Yeah.
Because data spaces in that sense are soft targets. It's like what you pointed out, Rustam. It's like they're already considered infected and nobody wants to take a risk.
Yeah. Yes.
I was in Germany all of March and April. So I was doing these couple of festivals. But what it was so simple that you do a Schnell test, an RT-PCR, every time you go to the theater. But because the tests are free and freely available, it was practical. So every single time you go to the theater, so it's not once every 3 days or it's every time. Theaters are lobbying for that. They're lobbying that the government make the tests accessible, free, and to everyone. Because the only way they'll go back to work is if the audiences come back to the theater.
Yes.
That's a good strategy to have free tests. But the problem is that now with the Delta variant and whatnot, the infection rate is so high that fair enough, the test might be free. But by the time you've gotten tested, you might have infected maybe another 10 people. So that's the crazy thing about this. Right.
There are a lot of variables within the vaccines, some of them stronger against some variants against the others. And that's what contributes to the general uncertainty, So I guess in this environment, yes, the digital space becomes extremely viable. and it offers new possibilities. I think this cannot be denied at any level. And we will just have to figure out new ways of challenging its limits. And Kirtana also its corporate control, because nothing that we are seeing on a Zoom performance. I've always been bothered by one thing, the economy of the virtual culture. Like, why, we are enjoying free shows, as Nikhil has shared many links with me of Wooster Group and so many other wonderful theaters, which I might never have been able to see. So that has been great. But they're not live performances. We have to make a difference between live Zoom performances and those which are pre-recorded performances, which are then being, shown. There's a big difference between the two. And what can I say? That, the corporatization and also the fact that actors are not really paid for their work. In most virtual, we don't have a new economy as yet for Zoom theater. So I always feel bad for the actors because they're giving their all within that frame, but at the end of the day, you say leave and you leave, and then what are the actors left with? I feel we need, everything is telling us we have to rethink the institution of theater itself, the way theater has been structured, the way theater has been practiced. We have to go beyond those beautiful creative impulses that we want to hold on to, and we have to hold on to it, but we have to now think about the hardware of theater, which frankly, we've never really thought about, except that we might have been oppressed by it. So as Kirtana, as you were saying, it's become oppressive to go to some of these theaters. I find them claustrophobic for the most part. The big theaters, they're unaffordable. Okay, there's a huge class hierarchy out there, etc., etc. We don't need to reiterate it, but it's like the institution of theater has to be radically rethought, and that begins with structure. It involves economy. It involves energy conservation, and all those factors. And I know, Nikhil, these are really major concerns to you, because you have been more than just a designer. You've been thinking about an alternative theater space in a city like Delhi, for God's sake. Not an easy task at all. How do you sustain that? And why are you doing it? To get back to Kirtana's question, why do we continue to be fired by theater?
What we are troubled by, like, I think you put it quite eloquently when you say the hardware of theater. And most of us feel oppressed. Unfortunately, Oddbird has shut down. Shunya is into hibernation. But there's another group, they saved the Gati space. 30 odd theater people, they came in, they contributed, and they're maintaining that place, and they're also offering it to others who can't afford it, and even thinking of opening it up to the Khidki village. And they call it Khuli Khidki, by the way, which I thought was very poetic.
Nice.
But what is interesting over here is that we are looking at the hardware, which sooner than later gets a gatekeeper, and that gatekeeper is the pain in the wrong place. I don't know if any of us over here is capable of kind of addressing this question, but as a community, how do we group so that this bureaucracy doesn't kind of take over and take away this opportunity of democratization as we've been looking at, at least the online platforms and stuff like that. Fair enough. Yeah, it's free access and we get to see. But sooner than later, there is going to be a gatekeeper who's going to come in and say that, you got to pay for this, or things are going to not really work out in the creative spirit of things.
I think actors need to be paid for their work. I feel very strongly about this. I think for too long, those of us who were born earlier, well, we thrived on amateurism because we could afford to thrive on amateurism. We came from family backgrounds where we had our food on the table. We could do theater 24 hours a day and love every moment of it, etc. We're not living in that kind of world anymore. Also, the new generation has different priorities. They're far more savvy about certain things, and why not? We didn't grow up. I certainly didn't grow up in a world where television was very big. I just grew up with theater and nothing else till the 90s, actually. So I feel we need a new economy. We need to figure out a new economy for the sustainable development of theater on our terms. So yes, gatekeepers, I think are always a problem. But at the moment, it's just who's going to fund this theater? Who's going to keep the wheels of this theater going, you know? And this is where I think funding structures, new support systems, new networking, but thinking of what we never thought about, frankly, earlier, because we were privileged not to think about it, which was money, you know. And now I don't think it can be sustained without some kind of long-term planning and some capital. And here I think we have to reach out to those few foundations, very few. I mean, you count them maybe on three fingers, who are concerned about artists, you know, in this time, you know. And can we enter into a more viable kind of collaboration with them, you know? So I would say a new economy is needed, new thinking, and that's part of the hardware that I'm talking about. Nikhil, what do you make of this in terms of money, economics, sustainability?
Yeah, this is definitely a big focus of ours as well. Black Box Oakla is part of a foundation, and we believe in giving the space out for free to the artists who work on the residency. And that's the gift that we want to give the artists. And while when the pandemic started, we obviously most of our revenue comes from audiences and people coming, and that's what funds a lot of the space, in addition to the foundation that gives the space. We did open for 6 months in the middle. We did have a lot of theater companies coming and in their COVID bubble, creating work, making experimenting, which was very exciting for us. But without having that final step, it became impossible for us to stay open. So we did have to close, and that's why we're again closed after the second wave, and we can't even do that right now. We're finding ways to. I think the future does have to have some variation of opening the space up for experiments, creation, while funding avenues need to be figured out simultaneously in different ways.
So this is something I've been banging on for a long time. So the gatekeepers are always going to be there. There's going to be different sorts of gatekeepers, right? But when you have a facility, when you have a venue, you have to have a dramaturg, you have to have a pedagogue, you have to move into the community, you have to know what community needs are. You really have to spread our wings. And this is a great way to provide employment as well. Because if each venue just invested in 4 of these people, right? Like one dramaturg, one pedagogue, a couple of creative assistants, you've immediately employed, you've increased the creative opportunity in your venue. But the ways that big venues are functioning right now is so personality driven, and it's so ad hoc. Black Box is a completely different model, and really you need to be commended enormously for that. But I'm saying the old time proscenium theaters are personality driven spaces. It's like who I know, and the
Yeah.
same old, right? Like, and another thing that I'm really opposed is this icon building machinery in India, because we build
Yes.
icons like banyan trees and don't allow anything to grow beneath it. We don't,
Yeah.
nothing will happen. Like that person will be dead, we'll still be doing their work and will not
Mm.
allow anything else to grow. So this is not good for young people. Young people have to have their rebellion valued, their mistakes valued, and just like let them go for it. They
And there
own
should be
something.
more agency for young people,
Much
creative
more
agency, you
yeah.
know. I think I
And
couldn't agree
employment.
with you more. The curse of Indian theatre, modern Indian theatre, where perhaps it hasn't gone as far as it could go, is this cult of personalities and this, you know, this iconicity that's
Absolutely.
built around certain, you
Yeah.
know, charismatic individuals once they go. This is an old problem, you know. But I think we have to now start
Yeah.
thinking of that word that we never used at the, I never really thought about, institutions. How do we enliven institutions? How do we bring creativity to institutions themselves?
Once institutions divide their work, right? So it's not every one person who's doing everything, including offering charisma to the building. If they
Hmm.
divide it up, employ young.
Who pays their salaries? I mean, because if even if you have 4
Well,
people on the
I
payroll,
think I don't think that's a problem, Rustam, because these are people who are raising funds to run festivals. So if you can
okay,
raise sort of funds to run a festival, you can jolly well pay 3 people.
yeah,
It's
that you
really
can.
not a lot. It's really not a lot.
Yeah,
So I
yeah,
just think the impulse has to be there. We have to desire that.
yeah, that is true.
And the other thing, I just have to say this, we don't like to unpack, right? We just like to accept something. So we accept the form, we accept the icon, we accept the, and we just refuse to unpack. But if you really look at the number of young theater makers who are unpacking a lot of stuff, who I'm sure Nikhil's space is inhabited by these young theatre makers,
Mm,
who
mm,
are so frustrated because they never get onto any national platforms.
mm.
They never invited to festivals. And recently, when I was doing this thing in Germany, I was so aware of the number of young women theatre makers who are actually unpacking sexuality, caste, gender, intersectionality, the farmers' protest, CAA, who are doing this work. How come we don't care to look at them? Because we're still valorizing some form or some this or some that or some the other. Why aren't we doing contemporary theatre festivals? We talk about contemporary Indian theatre. Show me contemporary Indian theatre. Don't show me some roots thing just reworked and
Yeah,
rehashed with
yeah,
some
yeah,
little bit of politics. So don't show me that.
yeah.
Show me new vocabularies.
I think that's what you were trying to do and what you are trying to do, Nikhil, in your space. You've been
Absolutely.
very fervent about the new, the
I think
contemporary.
the future of Indian theatre is only going to be in the new vocabularies. And to make those new vocabularies, we have to gift space to people. We have to give
Yeah.
them physically, but also mentally and emotionally. We need to allow
Yeah.
them to express themselves and experiment with what they're feeling. How else will we embody it on stage unless we have seen it once on stage, unless we
Yeah.
have a chance to actually be it on stage? It's
Yeah,
impossible otherwise.
absolutely.
And I think that's definitely our goal for the space. And yeah, of course, gatekeepers will be there, and we have problems with programming. We have way more people who want to be in the space than we can hold. We've opened up different spaces in this space. It's always going to be a problem. But I completely agree. The way a space survives is by community outreach, is by audience engagement, audience education, and audience building. That's a huge part. You have to include them in how to think about the theater and the role the theater plays. You have to include the community, and those are difficult things to do. And but that is the future of how we need to run our spaces, whether it's indoor, whether it's outdoor. It needs
Mm.
to involve everyone in different aspects, not just the performer audience relationship, which is integral and at the heart of it, but there's a lot around it that needs to be.
Well, I think the best thing that can be said about the pandemic is that it is making this kind of a conversation possible, in the sense that we are no longer complacent about whatever we might have inherited. And we realize that some of the most fundamental issues that go beyond actor-audience relationship in a very narrow kind of sense, we have to open it up. We have to really open it up to structural issues, to economic issues, to ecological issues, to all, and giving the new generation the space, the energy, and the support that they definitely need, because that's the only way in which this theater is going to get rejuvenated. I don't see us going back to the past. The idea of returning to any kind of normal fills me with a bit of terror. You know, it just does.
Thank you so much for this. It was wonderful.
Very lovely. Thank you.
And I
It's
truly
good
invite you all
conversation.
to come here. Do come and visit
Love
us.
to.
You know, really.
Love to do so.
And Nikhil, hang in there. It's gonna get good.
Just
Just have to hang in there.
I believe
Yeah.
that.
And we'll all support you so much.